You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There she is, the Iron Lady. When she sings it makes it official. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. As always, the show has been around for 15 years, brings you all the amazing people, the greatest stories, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the great authors who give you their life journey, share it with you, and so you can use it to expand your life or learn what not to do or give you ideas on how to reformat your life. The CEOs, the billionaires, the White House presidential advisors, all the great people come on the show to share with us their amazing stories. And boy, do we have one for you today that's going to blow your mind. He's the author of the newest book that comes out March 19th, 2024, called Ghost Town Living, Mining for Purpose and Chasing Dreams at the Edge of Death Valley. Brent Underwood joins us on the show today, and he's going to be talking to us about his amazing story. You may have heard of him. Back around the time that COVID started, there was these stories that emerged that were going viral on social media where a young gentleman had bought an abandoned old mining town. And I don't know, I know we were doing social distancing, but evidently he took the 6 feet a little too far and just didn't want to hang out with the rest of us during COVID. So I guess that was it. I don't know. We'll get his story here in a second. But Brent Underwood is the owner of Cerro Gordo, an original boomtown silver mine established in 1865. He's the creator of Ghost Town Living, where he chronicles his adventures on YouTube. And he currently lives on the mountain above Death Valley with no running water, 7 cats, 6 goats, and at least 1 ghost. Welcome to the show, Brent. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. And I mean, you got 1.68 million subscribers that follow you on YouTube. You've had a huge success. Give us any .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, I think I'm just Ghost Town Living on YouTube as well. That's probably the best place to keep up with it all. I'm also on Instagram at just Brent W. Underwood, but YouTube has most of the chronicles up here.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your new book and in your tale there.
Yeah, so, I think 4 years ago, as you're mentioning, before the pandemic, I had a pretty comfortable life in Austin, Texas. I was living in a nice apartment, had a lot of friends, but there's still kind of that urge that something else was out there, something that could kind of grab me and hold my attention. And I had grown up kind of having a background in history and hospitality. And so this opportunity to buy an old mining town came up, and we did that. And so the book's mainly about moving out here in 2020 until now, which is 2024, and kind of the trials and tribulations there within, and kind of how I navigated myself from what I would call a very comfortable life to a much more fulfilling life out here.
There you go. So let's get into a little bit of you, and we'll delve back into the story. What was your upbringing? Who hurt you? And no, I'm just teasing. But how did you grow up? How did you get this financed? What captured your imagination when you came across this, and how did you come across it?
Yeah. So growing up was pretty normal. I grew up in Florida, the son of 2 public school teachers. Both my parents were teachers, so education was very important. They were always like, hey, you need to kind of find those blue chip solid jobs, whether it's banking, doctor, and all those types of things. And for a little bit of time, my grandfather lived with us, and his favorite show was Gunsmoke. And so if I try to attribute my love of the West and, kind of the seed that was planted early, it was probably with Gunsmoke.
Landon fast forward. And God, I'm trying to think of all the guys on Gunsmoke. I grew up like you did, watching that show.
Yeah, it was. I think that's where the seed was planted. And then, if you fast forward, I went to school for finance. I thought, banking was the best of the options that I had laid out in front of me. I didn't like blood, so being a doctor was out. I didn't really think that being a lawyer would be terribly interesting, so that was out too.
There's a lot of blood in that business too.
There's a lot of blood as well. A lot of virtual blood too. And then Yeah, I graduated and I got the job in banking like I was supposed to. I kind of went through that path and I just hated it. And I lasted maybe a month or so. It was just miserable work. No offense to
Wow.
any investment makers out there, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine a worse thing to choose to do with your life than be an investment maker. And so I quit, and then I had gone into all the student debt to pay for this education that I wasn't using at all, and so I kind of traveled around a little bit, tried to figure out what to do. Ended up starting a backpacker hostel, where there's bunk beds, people come and crash, kind of like a bed and breakfast thing. Started one of those just because I loved traveling and I missed traveling. I wanted to kind of be around travelers. That kind of sparked the hospitality in me. I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. I like hosting people. And so that led to eventually a hostel in Austin, Texas, which was housed in a Victorian mansion from the 1800s. So that was my first kind of foray of combining the history and hospitality together. I think it's a lot more interesting when you can go somewhere and stay in a piece of that town's past rather than stay in like a white box Marriott or something like that, where you can stay anywhere in the world. And so that was doing really good. I was kind of getting a little bit anxious because it was doing well, but there's only so much you could do with that. I was looking kind of for the next project, and a friend of mine texted me a link, and I remember the link was like, buy your own town for under $1 million or something like that. And that was a pretty captivating text to get about 2:00 in the morning. And he texted as a joke. He threw "this might be your next project," as a text message. And I became obsessed. I woke up, I started reading into it, and the town was just straight out of the American West. There was all the things that happened in Gunsmoke here in real life. There was adventures, there was a bunch of murders, there's $500 million worth of minerals pulled out of the mountain here. And so it was just this huge interest. And so I remember the next day I didn't have nearly the money to buy the place. And so I called up the real estate broker just, for kicks. I was like, hey, I'd like to put an offer on the place. I remember he was kind of frustrated. He was just like, get in line, And so I guess a lot of people had liked this idea. Oh yeah, apparently this idea of buying your own town and doing something with it was appealing to more people than just myself. And so it was kind of got into this like bidding war type situation. And I called up a bunch of friends. I was like, hey, do you want to buy a ghost town? Most of them said no. Some of them said yes. Some threw in some money. And then I was able to take a loan against my place in Austin, so I kind of went all in. I took all my money. I took a loan against my place that I had in Austin and bought it. And we closed in July of 2018. And so bought it in 2018. The first 2 years was trying to play the whole thing of managing it from afar. And I guess first, the goal always has been to open this up for overnight accommodation. So have people come up, stay in cabins, stay in different things.
So let me stop you for a second so we can catch up on the story, if you don't mind. Because I want to play this out. When you bought the town, had you gone and seen it, or did you buy it, maybe off a picture, sight unseen?
I put a earnest money deposit down sight unseen, but I did fly out before we went through with the whole purchase. I flew out, and I remember, as the car was rattling into town, it just felt like so the road to get here, the final 8 miles to arrive in town is an 8-mile dirt road where you increase a mile in elevation. So it's very steep to get up here. Yeah. And so the anticipation just builds. I'm driving. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And then finally, the town kind of reveals itself to you. And it does look like out of an old Western or something. There's, there's an old saloon, there's an old church, an old museum, a mine shaft that goes 900 feet underground. And so there was just all of these things, and my mind just started racing. Like, what could we possibly do with this place? Could we, turn it into this or that? And again, the idea was always to hopefully open it up so people could come and stay overnight, because the town is set in a very beautiful setting where it's a mining town, and people think they think of the desert, but we're actually kind of in the high desert. We're up at 8,500 feet in elevation, and so it's kind of in the mountains. And from one side, you see Owens Valley, and you see Mount Whitney, which is the tallest peak in the U.S., as well as the Sierra Nevada. And if you turn the other way on our property, you see all of Death Valley National Park. So it's a very stunning view.
There you go. So, when I grew up, I went to the Calico Ghost Town in California. We always used to stop there, going between Utah and California when we traveled to see our grandparents. And there's a kind of romanticism to these sort of towns and setups, especially, when they're done well. Did you have any experience of seeing some of these things, and was that playing into vision, or you took this vision right from, hey, I want to have that sort of, what was the reference to the Western we both grew up watching? Gunsmoke. So was it just the Gunsmoke thing? Have you been to Calico Canyons or any other silver mining things and thought, this is, did you have any ghost town sort of romanticism before it?
I hadn't been to Calico, but I think, a lot of American culture has a romanticism around the American West. It's that Western expansion. It's kind of baked in. And so there is a lot of allure to the idea of this town where so much happened. And so that was kind of playing in my mind. And I think definitely influenced by the Gunsmoke, aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
And
see, if I took over a ghost town, I'd walk around like, I just lost the name. What's going on with the Tuesday? The guy who used to go, hey, Pilgrim, what's up? That's John Wayne. There you go.
Oh, right.
Right. I'd walk around like John Wayne, dressed like John Wayne. I call everybody Pilgrim. Well, let me tell you, Pilgrim. Sorry, guys, I can't do impressions. So you buy the place. Can you tease out to us what the amount you put down, how much you bet on your dream? Because I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. In the end, it was about 1.4 million. It started at 920,000. Yeah. It was expensive. It was 380 acres of property, about 20 buildings. And again, I didn't have nearly that money. So more than half of that came as a hard money loan. And hard money is essentially as close to, I'd say, a loan shark. More than half of it was a high interest loan. Some of it was loans from friends and family. And then the rest, again, was kind of like banking against what I had in Austin and just kind of pushing in all the chips, which I think
you really believed in this dream, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I believed in it, and it's scary, but at the same time, there was some comfort that came in that type of commitment. Because at least for me, I was always working on the next project, and there's an anxiety of thinking, what's the next thing that I'm going to do? And so for this, that question's kind of out of the question now. Like, this is the project, for the foreseeable future, hopefully for the rest of my life. And I think I found a lot of comfort in that idea of it.
Yeah. Well, you're building a hotel, I think, right now, aren't you? And so people can come there and visit. I'd be interested in coming to visit. It sounds like a lot of fun. I'm not going down any of mine, though, but there might be people like that. Yeah, we're building the hotel. It's interesting. There's so much history here, and I think the more I read into it, the more I find it interesting. Like in the town's heyday, it had 4,000 residents that lived here. And to put it in perspective, at that period of time, Los Angeles only had 6,500 residents. So it was almost like an equal trading partner to Los Angeles when it was in its boom time, which is like in the 1860s. And so to me, it's an important town, an important time, but it had been seemingly lost to time. And so the idea of trying to bring a dead town back to life is a pretty interesting project to work on, I would say. And I guess there's a lot of history behind this town. I found a book from 2012 called Cerro. Is it Cerro Gordo? Am I pronouncing that right? There you go.
That's right.
I think I got Cerro Gordo one time from a bad burrito. But there's a book that has images of it, and it's got quite the Wikipedia page. So there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, it was a boom town. It was at one point in time the biggest silver mine in California. There were hundreds of buildings. They were pulling out, like I said, if you adjust it for inflation, they pulled out about $500 million worth of minerals from the mountain.
Wow.
And so it was just a huge operation. And the demand of the place, so that we're in the high desert, so nothing was being grown here, and most of the products were being imported. And so the demand called for a port city. And so the demand from Cerro Gordo forced Los Angeles to develop a little bit quicker. And so it's kind of, there's some of the history books call these mines like the mines that built Los Angeles, because they were so important in the growth of Los Angeles back then.
Oh, wow. There you go. Yeah. So it looks like you're a doer sort of guy, work with your hands sort of guy. Do I have that correctly? I was watching some of the stuff you're doing, and you're good at that. I think you're kind of, that's something you enjoy doing, have that tactile experience with what you're working on. Is that a good analysis?
Yeah, I think it's definitely developed since being out here the last 4 years, a little bit out of necessity, just because we're 2 hours from the closest hardware store. Nobody lives for many miles around in any direction. And so you're not going to run to Home Depot 5 times in a day. You're going to have to figure it out yourself. And so it's kind of something that it started in necessity, but I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I think my day job before was working online primarily. And so the thought of getting out from behind the computer and building something real, something tangible that you can see
There you
and
go.
touch is something that's very rewarding, at least to me. And so I've really enjoyed that part of the process too.
And how do you deal with the being alone and alienation? Like I guess when you first drove up there, your car kind of broke down or at the end of the road or something, or got stuck in the snow, I think it was. And then and so you're kind of up there, and then COVID hits, and you're kind of really stuck up there with COVID and stuff. So tease a little bit of that if you would.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely can be a lonely existence at times, but I think during the pandemic, it was a little bit easier even because I would tell myself, hey, everybody's not hanging out with their friends. Everybody's a little bit lonely now. So it was an easy time to be up here for that reason. I think since the pandemic has eased up and people are actually out hanging out, it's a little bit harder at times when, all of my friends are going to see a movie or they're hanging out and all these things are happening. And I'm looking out at, the tumbleweed going by the road. It's a little bit different, but I think the trade-off is I went from this life that I felt like I was just kind of floating through, it was comfortable, but it just seemed like purposeless and meaningless in a way. And so out here, it's a much more difficult survival. It's like very hard every day. Like this morning, for instance, I had to shovel like 3 feet of snow to even use the outhouse because we don't have running water, and so it's hard and it's primitive, but if the trade-off wasn't there, I wouldn't be here. And so like I find that the satisfaction that I get from being out here, outweighs any of those loneliness feelings, I would say.
There you go. Well, I'm glad you're doing this when you're young, because man, when you're old, this would be much more challenging to do. Do you ever get worried that I think at one point I saw a video where you're wandering around, you're like, I don't know where I'm at, and I think it's when you first went up there, and then you ever worry about like, having a sort of health issue or any sort of thing, or maybe you fall and hurt your leg? Like, are there some movies about that? It's like, wasn't there a mine thing where the guy gets injured and there will be blood, something like that, and he has to crawl out of a mine or something with a broken leg? You ever worry about that sort of thing going on?
Somewhat. The hikes are less so now. I'm pretty comfortable with the hikes. The mine stuff, I think it is the opening scene that there will be blood where he falls down the mine shaft and like breaks his leg and has to climb out. That does haunt me sometimes, because in the mines, on hikes, you can have a satellite GPS locator where you can press a button and somebody can find you no matter where you are. Those don't work in the mines. And so usually I tell people where I'm going and when to expect me out. And if I'm not out, then there's a sequence of events that should happen if that were to happen.
There you go. So you got a good setup there as a backup. Do a lot of your friends like to come up and visit you and hang out and stuff? Or, there you go.
Yeah, it's one of those lives. It's one of those settings that I think is very fun to dip your toe into for 2 to 3 days. Right now, come out, we have mines to explore, you have dirt bikes, and it's kind of this fun adventure land. Living here for more than a week becomes a little bit, it takes that kind of commitment and purpose. But yeah, my friends love coming out right now. It's fun. They come out, not often enough, but they come out enough and we'll hang out.
Well, is it kind of nice to have your own? I mean, I don't know how the tax thing works in California for this thing, but basically your own city. So you're like, hey, we're going to do whatever we want over here. Hey, we'll make our own rules. Is that kind of how it works?
I wish that's how it worked, but unfortunately, the state and the county still supersede us. We're not like a sovereign nation or something, and so I still have to play by the county's rules, and I still have to play by the state's rules. And so, even for instance, you're mentioning building the hotel. The hotel has to be, permitted and approved to state of California regulations. And so we've had 8 inspections already on the build, and we're not, anywhere close to done.
The inspectors have to drive all the way out there.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
It sounds like fun though, man. I'd love to come see it. It's I grew up as a kid going to Calico like all the time. We just stopped there all the time, and so it was always fun. I grew up watching Westerns, and there's always like a romanticism to it. It sounds like you've been down in the mine. Is there any chance there's a place where people can go and mine diamonds in some park back east, and there's always some person finding some crazy diamonds? Is there any silver resurgence mining, or people can maybe come there and try and find some gold or silver sort of thing, pan for it or something?
Yeah, the mine, there's 30 miles of mines underneath the town, so it's crazy. There's kind of snake everywhere. Yeah, the main mine shaft goes 900 feet down, And off of the 900 feet, there's levels every like 100 feet or so.
Wow.
And the main mineral they're mining here is called galena, which is silver with like lead and sulfur and some other stuff in it. And so there's still little pockets of it. I've gone down and I've refined it all the way down to pure silver myself, which is a lot of fun.
Oh.
But whenever I bring up the idea of bringing visitors into the mines, I've talked to my insurance agent, and they describe that as gross negligence, and they said that there's no way to insure gross negligence. And so I don't know that I'll be able to do tours below ground, but maybe above ground I could show people, the process of refining the silver and stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be good. That, or I don't know, seat some streams or something. Is there any streams up there, eh? Maybe.
No, so it's very dry. We actually don't have any water at all because we're right above what's Owens Lakes, and Owens Lake is the lake that Los Angeles redirects to get their drinking water from. So we're actually kind of in a dust bowl out here.
Oh wow! Can you drill down and get water, or do you got to import it all?
Right now, we truck it all up in this old military truck that I have.
Oh,
but I've had hydrogeologists out. I've had even water dowsers out. The guys with the sticks and all that. I've had them out, but I haven't been confident enough to drill yet because I think we're probably having to drill about 1,000 feet down to hit water, and that's pretty expensive because you might not hit it.
Yeah, but you should do is make one of those teenage corrections sort of things for teenagers who are bad. They send them up.
Oh, right, so far away where they can't walk away.
I'd send my kids there for the first 18 years. There you go. You always tell them those stories of Grandpa had to walk 2 miles in snow, 10 feet deep, both ways to school. They're like, you're full of shit. And you're just like, I'm going to send you up there. And then is there a ghost running around that we can tease out? I think, did you say there's a ghost up there?
It depends kind of on who you ask. There's a lot of famous ghosts up here that people have seen over the years. Myself, I only have one ghost tale, and it happened even before I was living here full time. And so I don't know whether it was, either the ghosts have now accepted me as a resident and don't bother me anymore, or the things I previously perceived as ghosts turned out to not be ghosts. But the one that I knew, there's a building here called the bunkhouse, and that's where a lot of the miners used to hang out. And just past the bunkhouse is an overlook to overlook a great sunset spot. And so I remember I was up here, and we had a caretaker at the time. This was before I lived here full time. And we had some contractors that would come and go and work on different projects. And they would stay in the bunkhouse when they were here. And so that day, the light was on in the kitchen, and I was walking towards the sunset spot, and somebody looked out the curtains and looked at me, kind of closed the curtains. And I was like, oh, well, the contractors must be here, thinking, oh, don't worry about it. So I go up, watch the sunset, come back down. Next morning, I talked to Robert, the caretaker. I'm like, Robert, how long has the contractors been here? And I remember he kind of slowly turned to me, and he's just like, they left 2 weeks ago. And again, I'm a pretty rational person. So I was like, I know I saw somebody in there, but this isn't, again, we're at the end of an 8-mile dirt road. So it's not like somebody's just going to wander into the building. So I walked over there. I looked through the building, nothing, turned off the light, put a padlock on the door. I was like, no one's going in here. And then the next night when I went to go watch the sunset again, the light was back on in the kitchen. And so I was like, oh man, I know I turned that off. And so, my way of handling it is I figure there's 380 acres here. They can have the bunkhouse, hang out, do whatever you need to do.
Sure,
I'll stay in all the other buildings.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps with you telling this story, man. My hair's sticking up on my arms, dude. Someone in the audience is asking, how does he get electricity? Is he connected to the main network?
Yeah, so we actually they connected electricity up here back in 1916 when it was a mining town. So we're actually on the grid. Now that's not to say it doesn't go out. It went out. It went out last week for a week, and so I have generators up here too, where I get a lot of the power. Yeah. But we are on the grid, which is pretty nice. We're not. We have no running water, but we have power, which is nice.
There you go. Well, at least you got that. As long as you can get Wi-Fi. But and people are enthralled with what you're doing, man. I can't wait to get this hotel open. I think people would love to come there. I mean, you may need I saw the size of the hotel you're building. It looks like it's kind of smaller. I guess you'll see what the demand is when it comes, but yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I remember it went so viral. They're like, this guy bought a town, and everyone else is like, does he not like us that much? But yeah, I think maybe we've all kind of had that fantasy. I mean, over the years, I've seen like small little towns get sold in Utah and Nevada and stuff. Not really ghost towns, but just like stupid little towns that got kind of bypassed by by the main highway. And I think everyone's kind of maybe thought of a fantasy or had that fantasy of, silver or gold mining. Every now and then I'll see someone panning for gold. They still do it on like TikTok and crap. And you're just like, that kind of sounds like fun. I don't know. I wouldn't last long, but so you've just done it, man. And you've journeyed this, and it's making a killing, I'm sure, on YouTube. What have we talked about? You want to tease out about the book so we can get people to pick this baby up and check it out and plan for reservation.
The book's cool. It's kind of the experience of being here over the last 4 years, all the different stuff from surviving the natural disasters, exploring the mines, but I also tried to research and find the best stories from the past year that hadn't been told, because there's a really rich history here, and I kind of wove those in throughout the story as well. And so I think overall it's kind of hopefully the idea to take that crazy jump into something that you really care about, to find what you really find meaning in, and just to kind of go for something.
There you go. Now, what about chicks, man? You ever have any? How's the dating life going up there? It's a little hard to get married to somebody and be like, "Hey, honey, this is it. This is the castle right here."
This is it. But especially right now, maybe if we get some running water going,
there you go.
All those some decent things, maybe a little easier. But right now it's pretty sparse out here.
Women are into that running water. They just luxury. Like living a high. Evidently, bathing's interesting, but when you're a young man, bathing's overrated. So why bother? I think that's how we are on the show sometimes. But there you go. Well, Brent, it's been fun to have you on the show, man. I seriously would love to come out and try it once you get this thing rolling. I do need some of that running water a little bit just to I don't know, brush my teeth. But it sounds like so much fun. If I do come, I'm going to dress up like John Wayne, and then I'm going to perfect my accent and call everyone Pilgrim. So there you go. Oh, you could do horse riding, huh? You could have people ride horses, and think of all the different things you could do.
Get some mules up here.
Doesn't Calico, they have some players, like they have Western dudes who have like gunfights or something? Yeah,
like the reenactment stuff. Yeah, they have that too.
Yeah, maybe you could get Clint Eastwood to come up and hang out, man. You have part of his last name. You're kind of halfway there.
There you go. Yeah, Wood. We have
Underwood, Eastwood. You guys are probably somewhere, on ancestry.com. There's a break off there. Maybe you could get him up to come, maybe there's a Clint Eastwood. Maybe you might be able to pull like a young Clint Eastwood. You just get those satchel blankets or whatever he used to have,
Yeah.
And you just have to get a gritty sort of angry, anyway, I'm just having fun. So there you go. But yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Have a few seedy bandits running around town, doing the whole scenery thing. Just be a riot, man.
Definitely.
There you go.
It's fun.
Well, Brent, it's been fun to have you on. Give us your final thoughts. Tell people where to buy the book and any spin-outs or plugs you want to take and do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's available everywhere books sold. It's just called Ghost Town Living. I think a great place again is to jump into the YouTube. There's 4 years of documenting what's been going on up here, and that's a great place to check it out.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Brent. We really appreciate it. And, keep working hard and doing the good work. I think it's exciting what you're building up there, and a lot of fun. And you know what? You're living your dream, man. I think that's the beauty of your whole story, because we have a lot of, entrepreneurs and stuff. They come on, they start companies, they do businesses, but you found what really works for you, man. Like I've run companies all my life. People ask me, they're like, it's great that you do what you love. And I'm like, I don't really do what I love. The podcast I love, because I love meeting and interviewing really cool people like you and your stories. But all my other companies, I'm like, I just do this for the money. I'm a whore, and I don't really love it. And they're like, what would you do if you could do whatever you want? I'm like, I'd probably run a wolf refuge somewhere up in Wyoming of wolves. And I have Siberian Huskies, and I'm like, I'd probably do that. And they're like, there's no money in that, idiot. And I'm like, I don't think I'd really care. Doing what you love, it's priceless. You can't put a thing on it. So I'm glad you've done that, and you're sharing the vision with other people, man. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah,
you made the bet. Made it work. Folks, order up his book wherever fine books are sold. Ghost Town Living, Mining for Purpose and Chasing Dreams at the Edge of Death Valley. There you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the TikTokity, and Chris Voss, Facebook.com. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.